Zoom recording, yes. Okay, so we're recording, great. And I'm gonna make everything bigger, like I said, which you can do in preferences. I'm gonna make, actually, hold on. I'm gonna share with you the whole desktop here so you can see other Ableton windows that come open, like the preferences. Okay, do y'all see my screen? Cool. I'm going to make everything bigger. So under preferences, look and feel, you can turn up zoom display. I'm gonna make it huge, like this. Maybe that'll help. Cool, so just so you know, in the class folder, there's a new document for today for just notes for the class. This is the bullet list of things that I want to hit today, as well as a couple of other resources and an assignment. So if you want a third window to deal with, you could follow along there as well. Yeah, there's a link to the class Dropbox folder on every email that I'm sending. Oh yeah, shoot. I was gonna send, oh no, there aren't any more people who signed up in the last couple of minutes, I think. Just gonna double check I'm not leaving somebody out. Okay, so 2 new people I need to send this to. Pardon me, everybody. One more second. Great. Okay, so today we are going to do everything that I can think of about drums. So drums, let's see, we've worked with drum loops so far. These are audio loops of other people's recordings of drums. Now we're going to be making our own with our first MIDI instrument. So just to recap from last time, the difference between audio and MIDI is that audio sounds just one way. Basically, it's the recording of the audio. MIDI is like a musical score. It is a sequence of instructions of like when to hit what note of a keyboard at what time, and you know, which note, when, and how hard to hit it. So it's like a script for what to play, but it isn't the sound itself. So to play MIDI content, we play it through a software instrument. And those instruments live all under instruments, but they're also broken out by category above. So everything that exists in here also exists between sounds and drums, but they're sorted by type. So drums are all separate and sounds are all here sorted instead of by like which piece of software creates them. They're sorted by their quality or role in your arrangement. Somebody just turned their mic on and I'm getting some feedback. Is that possible? No. Okay, cool. So we are going to make our first MIDI instrument, and that is going to be a drum rack. So everything under drums is a drum rack. And you have at the top here a default one that has nothing in it. But all of these are presets with different drum sounds loaded. So first thing to do is go to your drums folder, grab one of these presets. You can listen. Sorry, we'll turn those down. You can listen to any of them. If you don't hear it play automatically, as always, turn on the headphone button here, and that'll audition each one. So why don't you take a moment now and go listen to a couple of drum kits and pick one that you like and drag it onto an empty MIDI track or into the empty space over here. Ninja Drums. I just like the name. Okay, so here you have a drum rack. A drum rack is a bunch of different drums. Each one of these is mapped to a key on your keyboard if you have a MIDI keyboard, or buttons, whatever kind of MIDI controller attached. So each key is a different note. If you find that you're playing notes on your keyboard and you're not hearing sounds, look over here on the left and you'll see stuff light up. Those are the keys that you're playing, and this represents all of the entire keyboard from 0 to 127, which is all the MIDI notes that there are. So we can see here that we're just in too high an octave. So use your octave button to transpose you down until the orange yellow lights are on the light gray squares, which are the ones that have sounds loaded into them. But you can load as many as 128 different one-shot samples into this thing. Let's see. Only see drum hits. So everything is empty here for a couple of you. Drum racks aren't something that you're supposed to download. Actually, they come automatically with, a handful of these come automatically with Ableton, but it may be an issue of, we have different levels of it. I imagine some come with even the most basic level. Oh yeah, still had loop in the search. That's probably the answer. Laura, check that out. See if you have anything typed into the search box here. I'm going to keep going. If that's still a problem, Laura, flag it for me in a minute. Okay, so we've got a drum kit. Each one of these, I'm going to pick a different one so that something's a little complicated about that one. And most of these you'll see the sample itself on the right, and you have lots of ways that you can change that particular sound if you want to do it. But this is an instrument called the Simpler that we're going to dive deep into next time. So we'll save designing drum sounds for later. Right now, we're just going to use the preset sounds and make our first beat. So up here in the clip areas, we are going to create an empty clip just by double-clicking on the empty space. It opens up down here an editor for 1 bar of music. We can change the length of that bar down here if we want to. You can type in a number. And then you'll notice that it's got the same top rows up here as we've been working with. Loop, on the very top, it's our timeline, loop bar, starting point. We don't have warp markers in MIDI mode though. That's the only difference. You can change the length of the bar here under loop length. You can type in a different number. You can change the time signature over here on the left under clip if you want to. And you can change the length of the bar manually just by changing the loop area. Okay, so now we're just going to click in a beat. This is the easiest way to do it. And we'll start with just the most basic beat of American music. I don't know what you would call this. I just think it's like the American beat. You put a kick on 1, You put a snare on 2 and 4. And then you put another kick pretty much anywhere between here and here. And then hit play on your loop. Maybe 2 kick drums here. This is pretty much open terrain. You can add a little detail. Yeah, to make a beat, to make a note, you just double click. Then you can click and hit delete. You can drag it around to move it. Great. Why don't you all take a moment and type in some kind of rhythm for yourself. I'll call you back in about 1 minute. Okay, coming back over here, and I'm going to show you a couple more things that you can do when you're editing here. So just pointing out a couple of things that make stuff easier. One is fold. Fold hides everything that you're not using. This is maybe less of an issue when you're making drum beats and there's not so many different sounds. But if you're working on a piano roll and you've got, you know, 50, 60 notes all in one thing, you can hit fold and it'll only show you the notes you're using and it'll make things a lot easier to edit. Also, there's a pair of Audition headphones here as well. Turn that on, and when you click on a note, you'll hear what it sounds like. And so you could drag it, for example, to a different place to pick a different sound. If I want these rims to be claps, I can just drag them up. Side note connected to the headphones here. Everything that happens in this kind of audition setting, including previews over here, auditioning of this stuff, the metronome also, they all go through a separate kind of output, the volume knob of which is over here. It can be routed separately too. If you're, for example, giving a performance, you can route, you can do this kind of thing at the same time and have it only go through your headphones while the band, or the audience doesn't hear your metronome or whatever. Cool. So that's fold and audition. Here are some other things you can do to edit. You can select a certain amount of time, and you'll see that it's selected up here. And then you can duplicate, Command D, and it'll copy that thing onto each. So if you want to make a simple house beat, you can go kick, hi-hat closed, select that beat, Command D, Command D, Command D. Now I'm not getting any sound. Are y'all hearing that? Probably not. Okay, it's not super important right now. I may need to refresh the screen and share. But I'll do that on the next break. So that's duplicate. The next thing you want to be able to do is work with this grid. Yeah, Ronnie, we'll get to velocity in just a moment. No, it's not because the headphone thing is on. That was just working a moment ago. This happened to me the other day. I just need to make a fresh screen share. I'll be there in a sec. The grid. So you're working on a grid right now. It's helping me by snapping whatever I do, whatever I move, or when I click, exactly to 16th notes here on the grid. You want to be able to flexibly change what those subdivisions are. So if you want to do 30-second notes, or if you just want to simplify things and work in quarter notes, you can do that. So changing these settings is under Options. And here are your controls. Command 1 gives you more grid lines. So I'm going to hit Command 1 a couple of times. Boom, 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 boom. It's adding a division in between each one, and now I can make super tiny notes. Command 2 widens the grid, the opposite. 3 gives you a triplet grid. So right now I'm on an 8th note grid. I hit Command 3, and now I have 3 8th notes per bar. And now I hit Command 3 again, and I'm back to 2. So triplet grid is a toggle. And then the last one, I use this a lot, is snap to grid, Command 4. Turn that off and the grid disappears, and you can put things wherever and slide things around. This is really useful when you start adding feel to your grooves, because you don't actually want everything perfectly in the right place. You want to move things around a tiny bit. We'll talk a lot more about that later. So Command 4 toggles whether the grid exists at all. I don't know, I think about Command 4 being like the essence of grid in the way that a grid has 4 quadrants. Why don't you take a moment and play with the grid settings, click in some new variations on your beat, experiment with more and fewer grid lines and triplets and being off the grid, and I will reset the sound. Be right back. Great. Yeah, good point, John. There's right clicking or control clicking is really, Ableton uses it a lot. So pretty much everything that you might want to see some more stuff about, you can right click and get some options. In the menu bar, it's under Options here in the middle. Yeah, muting one instrument in your kit is, oh, there's two ways to do it. One, you can mute that actual instrument. So in order to see this view again, you double click the track header here and you see the instrument on the track, and you can mute any instruments you want. Or you can double click again to come back to the grid, and you can select everything in a row, or even click the button over here and it'll automatically select everything in a row. And muting here and in other scenarios too is 0. You just press 0 and it mutes those notes. Keep working on that. I'll join you back in a moment. David, snap to grid is like helpful, but not, yeah, I'm not sure how to describe it. It doesn't force you onto the grid, it helps you onto the grid. Alyssa, you can see what octave your MIDI keyboard is in just by playing some notes and seeing what lights up on your on this view here. You can look on the instrument itself by double clicking the track header here, Alyssa. Oh yeah, Z and X also shift octaves. I'm not sure if that's for, that's for the MIDI keyboard. I mean the keyboard piano, which I'll talk about later. To get it to play from the cursor position. You can't play from the cursor position, but you can put your cursor, your mouse up here below the bar, and you see a little speaker. And you click somewhere, and it'll round to the nearest bar if you have bar set here. So that's why this isn't changing, but if we had a bunch of different bars, you could click anywhere and it'll start on that particular bar. Shift space to start from the cursor position. It's not working for me. Rachel, you don't need a MIDI keyboard to input sounds. You just, once you get a drum kit on one of your tracks, you can double click to create an empty clip slot and then double click notes to put them where you want them. Okay, let's come back and I'll show you a few more things. We go back to here, put our beat in. Cool, so here's some other things that you might want to do when you're editing rhythms. Copy paste. Say I've got this pattern that I like. You can, as usual, select things, Command C, click somewhere, paste them. You can also drag things around all together by selecting them all and dragging them. put them on new instruments. There's the pencil tool, which is draw mode. There's a pencil up here. Command B gives it to you as well. And that lets you quickly draw a whole row, which is useful for like hi-hats. The pencil used to let you draw vertically as well, and you could really just make a mess, which I loved, but alas, no longer exists, I guess. Couple of other cool tools. You've got some canonic utilities over here. You have reverse for like a retrograde thing. It just puts everything in reverse order that you have selected. There's an invert, which turns everything upside down. Just like we saw on audio clips, you can halve the speed or double the speed, or have the time or double the time. And something that's really useful is this duplicate loop. So if you have a beat that you like, and it's just one bar, you can turn it into a 2-bar phrase by hitting duplicate loop. And this is just like a composition axiom for me. Whenever you duplicate a loop, change something the second time. Almost doesn't matter what. That turns a 1-bar loop that turns 1 bars happening twice into a full 2-bar phrase. I've got another question about invert. So basically, invert is going to make an imaginary axis along here. In the middle, basically, it's going to take the average of whatever your notes are, and it's going to flip the top ones to the bottom and the bottom ones to the top. I find these things, all of these over here, really fun and useful ways to just like be playful and mess around and find new things that I like. And then the last thing here is velocity control. So velocity basically means volume. It doesn't always mean volume, but it means how hard do you hit the key or how hard do you hit the drum. Yes, it almost always translates into volume. You could set it up in the software so that it controls other parameters of the sound, but it's this down here. So every one of these notes has its own little lollipop tree here, and you can drag that up or down and it'll turn the volume up or down of that note. You can also use the pencil tool here. So I'm going to do Command B to turn on the pencil. And let's see, select them all, Command B. Yeah. And then I can just draw a curve. So again, that was, I have to select the ones that I want to control. Say I only want to put this, yeah. Here's the idea. I'm going to select first all of my kicks and rims and make them all be the maximum volume so that they're really loud. But then I want to say draw a pattern through my hi-hats. Now I'm going to select all the hi-hats. You can click here. Now they're all selected below. And I can do Command B to get the pencil and draw some variation in here. This is really important for getting a more human feel in what you do. Ronnie asks, is this something you have to implement in your tracks? I assume you mean velocity controls? No, you don't have to do it, but it's part of making what you make more expressive and giving a more human variety to things. And there's lots of times when you want to have a drum hit that is quieter than other drum hits. Like if I put a kick here, Um, that's not really that important. It's just like a little decoration leading into this kick. It's really nice for it to be softer. That's how a drummer would play it, and so that's how we want to emulate it. How to solo one instrument. Again, you can go over here, double click the track header to see the instrument, the drum rack, and each of the drums has a mute button and a solo button. So if you want to hear just the hi-hats, you can solo that. Oh. If you don't want to hear the kick, you can mute it. Cool, so let's take a moment and practice now. No, D-Wade, we're definitely gonna hit the groove pool today. So let's all take a minute and just develop our 1-bar loop using these techniques. Try this stuff, try copy and paste, try dragging things around, try draw mode, mess with your velocities. Then hit duplicate loop to make it a 2-bar phrase and change something about the second time. And then hit duplicate loop again and change something about the last time. And then you start to make larger and larger phrases that way. Cool, let's take 2 minutes to work on this and then I'll call you back. In this work time, please shoot me questions or let me know if you want to see anything again. Pascal, to mute a MIDI note, select it and press 0. Ah, Lucian, the legato button is more useful for, yeah, for other instruments. Jacob, it is a little hard to look at with all of the lollipops there. Just first select the note that you want to edit, and it'll select the lollipops that you want to have. I think that's pretty much the main thing that you can do, but it is just basically a little difficult. Yeah, here's Pascal's question. He's not hearing much change when he changes the velocity of a note. Is this a setting somewhere? Yeah, it is. If you go over here to your drum kit and you pick the sound that you want to control, then you should get this simpler editor over here, and you can click on controls. And it's this setting. How much does the velocity affect the volume? Turn that up and you'll get much more juice. Great. Cool, I'm seeing lots of heads bobbing. That's a good sign. Pascal, your gloves match your wallpaper? Nathan's asking, how do you get into the minutia of the built-in delay effect? We'll dive more into effects later, but you can double click the track header here on your delay return track. And this is the device, and feel free to poke around and change the settings and see what happens. Jason wonders, what's a scenario where you would want your velocity to not control the volume? I don't know, I think in a lot of kinds of dance music, there's a lot less velocity change in drum beats, and you do want something really rigid and regular in your beats. Okay, let's come on back and talk about the next thing. And that next thing is groove. So right now we've been working in perfect geometric time where everything is equally spaced. And this can be very funky, but it is not very human because no drummer would actually play it like this. Neither is it possible nor is it desired for anyone to play anything in perfect time. Getting different feel for your 16th notes or your 8th notes, like swing, is something that Ableton makes really easy. You just go over here under clip to groove, and you hit this button. This is the first time we're encountering this button. We're gonna see it a lot. It's called the hot swap button. You push it, and it takes you immediately to a bunch of presets for alternate versions of whatever that thing is. And you can actually grab and drop in a new setting or a new instrument or a new effect or a new preset or whatever while everything is playing and it doesn't interrupt things. That's the hot part of hot swap. So you hit the hot swap button and it opens up the swing and groove library. So each of these comes from a different source. I like that they have MPC in here. So the MPC was a sampler. It's basically the sampler that all 90s hip hop was made on. And it has a bunch of swing settings, and Ableton like ripped those swing settings exactly, and you can bring them into your beat. So most of these folders are organized into settings like this. There's usually an 8 or a 16 telling you that it's swing on the 8th notes or the 16th notes. So there's 8 and there's 16. And then the last number is how hard is the swing. So if you don't know, if this is a new word for you, swing, it's really simple. It's the difference between having 2 notes that are equally spaced or having the second one happen a little late. How late is this number? High values are going to make it very late, and low values are going to make it less late. So here it is. I'm working on the 16th note level with these hi-hats. Circling back to the groove folder for a question, you get to that folder by clicking this button next to groove here on the left. And then it shows you all of the possible options. So my notes are in 16th notes, and I want to swing on a 16th note level. So I'm going to do, let's see what funker means. You can just double click it, and it'll put it here in this list of grooves. And it's automatically applied. If it's selected here, then it's going to interpret this grid through basically this pattern, and you can audition it here. So not only is it unequally spaced 16th notes, there's also variation in the velocity that also gets applied. So this hi-hat groove is going to be interpreted through this particular kind of groove fingerprint. The groove affects only this clip, but if you're working in other clips, it keeps the ones that you're using elsewhere in the program in this list, so it's easy to set them all to be the same thing. So you can pick a couple of different ones, keep them in the list, and try them out. So I'm going to just drag a couple more of these into the folder, some really extreme swing, and listen to a couple of variations. Really extreme swing. Let's see. Less extreme swing, pretty light swing, 53. Yeah, Jacob, that just happened to me too. It copied over. It didn't keep all the ones I dragged together. I'm not sure why, but it is working now. There's something about it. Just try again. Maybe pick it and then drag it, and then pick it and then drag it. So you have a commit button. The commit button is going to actually apply that interpretation to the spacing here. And that can be useful for some things if you want to get more fine-tuned and change things more precisely or more wildly here. But it can also cause problems for you. I find it's better just to leave it here, don't commit, let it interpret it through, rather than actually apply and change the placements of all of your notes. And yeah, that's the commit button. So why don't you take a moment and add some kind of funky swing groove to your beat. One that I really like a lot is just called Loosely Flow. It's not quite swing. It's like pretty even, but there's just a little humanized. It's just a little randomized and feels good. So pick one or two, try them out, and we'll come back in a moment. And I'll answer questions now. Yes, we got a question. Does the groove apply to all the notes in the clip? Yes, it does. It warps the entire grid at either the 8th note level or the 16th note level. David, yes, it does apply to velocities as well, but it doesn't override your velocities. It just like influences your velocities. Alyssa, no, it applies to the entire clip. If you want it to only happen on one of the instruments of the drum rack, just make a second drum rack. You can make a copy of it with Command D and, you know, put your hi-hats on one and your kick and snare on the other. Quantized timing random velocity. I don't know where you are looking. Oh, here. Why don't you, I could talk you through it, but I want to get to more things today and it'll take a minute. So why don't you take a look at the help for each one of these. You can open up the help tips over here on the bottom left. Everybody, if you're interested in Groove more, this is actually a great way to figure out what's actually happening. You can open up the Groove pool with this kind of wavy equal sign, and open up your help down here at the bottom left and read about each of these settings. No swing, Pascal, is just none in Groove. Oh, if you committed, then you would quantize back, and we're just about to talk about quantizing for everybody. But Pascal, you can select it all and do Command 4, and it'll quantize to the nearest grid. I mean, Command U. Cool. Jacob has a good answer for Chris. Gabriella, resetting the velocities back to default. I can show you here. Click in this window, do Command A to select all. Then you have all the lollipops selected. Grab one, drag it to 0, drag back up, and now they're all the same. I'm not sure what the default is, but you just pick the level that works for you. I don't know the ins and outs of why sometimes we're replacing and sometimes we're adding to the list. Let's table that. Okay, 10 more seconds. David isn't able to change the subdivisions anymore. No, it's not because you've doubled the loop. It may be, let's see. I'm not sure. Maybe you're not actually clicked in the window. Oliver Weston, let's table that for after. Cool, let's come back. There's a few more things I want to show you to have maximum power for your work for the next few days. One is recording in a beat if you have a MIDI controller. So Or you don't need a MIDI controller because there is a keyboard built into your keyboard. I'll show you what that means here. All right. If you don't have a MIDI keyboard, watch now. Click this button on the top right that turns on the keyboard. And now your typing keyboard is a piano keyboard. So F is F. And it goes to the left and to the right from there, where A is C, W is C sharp, S is D, E is D sharp, D is E, F is F. So you can use that to type. Z and X change the octave that you're in. Z goes down, so you'll probably need to hit Z a couple of times until the yellow lights are lighting up inside your instruments here. And then you can play in if you have the track armed. So here's the first thing about recording is that the track needs to be armed for it to listen to MIDI or your typing keyboard. So arm the track, play, use Z and X to get the yellow dots onto the grid here. If you have a keyboard, same story. You need to find the right octave and then arm the track and you can just play. Recording in is really easy and you can do it while you are performing or while the music is already happening in a really fluid way. I'm just going to demonstrate here by turning on the metronome. You can click the menu here and give yourself a count in if you want an empty bar of count in, but it doesn't really matter because you could edit what you do. You will end up editing what you do anyway. Then if the track is armed, the play button is actually a record button. So I can hit record, I'll get a bar count in, and then I'll play a beat. And then I'm going to click again here a little bit before I'm done, and it'll start looping what I've played. So I'm going to try to talk through what I'm doing here. Record, playing. Wow, I've got some serious latency. And now I'm clicking play. And it's real delayed for some reason. Must be Zoom. I blame Zoom and not my fingers. So you will get better results, I promise. I'm not sure what's going on here. So once you've made a recording, it's going to be messy like this. I'm hitting fold, so we just see what I've played. You're going to make some mistakes. And, oh, arming is, it's got a little, it's this guy under S. So you're going to make mistakes. You're going to want to clean things up. You can do it either manually by dragging things around, or you can do it automatically with quantizing. Quantizing means it's going to take each note and automatically move it to the nearest grid line or some other subdivision, and I can show you how to customize that. We'll select everything, or Command A, Control click, and then we can quantize. Boom. My quantized settings are not the same as yours, so okay. Quantize moves everything onto the nearest grid note. If you're kind of far off, it may put it on the wrong nearest grid note, so you may have to do some fine-tuning manually. The shortcut is Command U, and I do this all the time. You'll just record and immediately go in, Command A to select everything, Command U to clean up the timing, to quantize. If you want to change your quantized settings, it's here. Things that you might want to do are define exactly what subdivisions you want it to quantize to. And this is what I really like. I keep this down at like 50%. This means it's not going to make it perfect, but it's going to move things halfway to perfect each time I hit Command U. So I can hit Command U a couple of times and gradually tighten up my rhythms, but it will keep, if I only hit it once or twice, it'll keep some of my kind of human variation and not totally destroy it. So just in the interest of getting to everything, and I know that some people may want to go right at one, I'm gonna blow through the next couple of things. I can stick around and do anything again twice. If you can stay in practice. I'll stick around for questions, but I just want to show a couple more things. So once you have a loop that you like, and of course I'm recording this, so feel free to go and catch up on the recording later. Cool, so once you have, let's see, often it's easiest to not play the entire beat in immediately, but just to do one layer at a time. So you might record first just the kick drum. And then once that's looping, you may want to add more layers. So you can overdub here. This button is called the session record button. And my workflow here is looping my first layer, playing around until I find a part that I like. Still with the latency, sorry. And then once I find something I like, then I can switch on the session record button. And then toggle it off when I'm done. It's automatically selected, so I can just do Command U to get it onto the grid. And then work on my next layer. Okay? And then quantize that. So you can build up things one at a time with overdubbing with the session record button. Just put a little comma here. Next idea is that there's a new feature in Ableton 10 that's here. It's called Capture MIDI. If I am not recording and good note, guys, about the cursor. I'll see if I can find some software to make my cursor bigger. If I'm just fooling around on my keyboard, even if I'm not recording, I can say, oh, I had a great idea. I just figured it out, but I wasn't recording. Too bad. There's this button up here right at the top next to the session record button. That's the, it's like a square with some pieces missing. You can just hit that and it's actually recording everything that you do all the time. And so it's making a determination of like, what was your last idea and how much should I loop? And then you can, of course, change the size of the loop. But that's a cool trick. Cool, color is issue. I'm gonna try changing the color of the program then. I know how to do that more than the mouse. Okay. I'm gonna do one or two more things. One is the idea of a family of beats. So often you're going to be making variations on a beat. Maybe you've got one that's just the kick, Command R to name, 4 on the floor, Shift drag to make a copy. then there's a variation. Add claps, shift drag to make a copy, add something else. So I suggest working this way, where each beat that you make, actually make a couple of different versions of that go from simple to complex. But there's another approach for making a family of beats, and that is to make each element of your drums be a different track. So we might say like kick and snare on one track. I'm going to click here to select the track and then Command D to duplicate it. I'm going to Command R to rename it hats. And then on this track, I'm just going to do my hi-hats. And then this way, you can have a couple of different layers that you turn off and on of your beats. And then you can have different variations of each of these elements. So those are just two ways of working. It's up to you. Both are good. Another way to get beats, and this is a very cool trick, is to take an audio loop. Watch this. We've got, let's see, packs. Say I really like this. Oh, this actually isn't an audio loop. Sorry, I should have a, let's see, break. Okay, this is an audio loop. Nope. Sorry, I'm striking out. Great. Okay, so I've got an audio loop. You can drag an audio loop onto a MIDI track. If you already have something on it, then let's see. If you don't have anything on it, it'll say, oh, you want this track to be an audio track, and it changes it. But if you have something already on the track, kind of confirming that you want it to be a MIDI track, then it will ask you, it just determines that it's a beat, and it does a transcription of the beat. So this is the original. And check this out. So not only does it do its best guess of like which notes are playing and attaches them to it, but it also gets the particular variations of rhythm and of velocity. So that is one way to start getting your own material to start playing with. Isn't that awesome? And then there's just one other idea I want to give you so that you can do the most with these next couple of days, which is that basically you've learned everything already for all the other instruments as well. All the other instruments that work with MIDI also are edited in exactly the same way. You can record them the same way. And those choices are here under sounds. So if you want to add some strings, go under sounds, arm the track, record it in on your keyboard or on your typing keyboard, or just click in painstakingly some notes. Recording. And And then adjust the size of your loop, quantize. So that's all MIDI instruments work the same way. So I'll let you read the assignment. I just want you to make 5 beats, and I have some specific guidelines for those in the assignment document. I also have some more resources for writing beats. There's a great website called Attack Magazine that has these tutorials for how to make beats in different styles. So if you're finding that you are having trouble making stuff from scratch, you don't know, musically how you want to do things, or what to do to make it sound like a certain style, you can do one of these tutorials. Oh man, it's been my face this whole time. You haven't been seeing my screen. Is that right? You can see both. Oh, great. Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, so I really suggest this Attack Magazine Beat Dissected. Yeah, and actually, Chris just mentioned this book available, The Secrets of Dance Music Production. I bought it a couple weeks ago, and I actually took photos of every page of the beat like recipe starter kits. I took photos and put them in the class folder. So you can take a look at those. They look like this. And there's 14 pages of these for different styles of dance music. So I suggest doing those as tutorials for yourself to learn. There's all kinds of cool techniques, not just like what notes to put where, but effects and EQ and things for how to get a particular sound for a particular style. So cool, that's class. Thanks so much for coming again. I'm thrilled. This is really fun for me, and I hope it is for you. It was really cool hearing your homework assignments. Please keep those coming. And our next class is Tuesday, and then I want to do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday on an ongoing basis. That's my plan. I will upload the video. I also, last time, I'm going to keep doing this unless nobody finds it useful, but I'm going to do the homework assignment, and I'm going to record my screen while I'm doing it. So if you want to just see what I do, just kind of an example of how you would approach the homework, those will also be in the folders. And now let's spend some time, well, I'll take a look at your questions. Thanks, everybody. David, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for how many weeks? Man, who knows? I'm just going to keep doing it. And if people keep showing up, I'm going to keep finding good things to show you. Yeah, same time. I think it's good for people in Europe to get to it in the evening, and it's good for me. Hi from France. Hey, Gabriella. Man, my favorite composer on the planet is taking this class. I'm so glad you're here, Gabriella. Okay, can I go over again how I got it to transcribe the beat to MIDI? Yes. So it's as simple as taking a MIDI clip, sorry, an audio clip, and dragging it onto a MIDI track. The only caveat is if you have an empty MIDI track, if you have a MIDI track that has no instrument on it, and you drag an audio clip, it's just going to assume that you meant for that track to be an audio track. But if it's a MIDI track, which I can make with Command-Shift-T, then I drag it over. Sometimes it'll ask you whether you want it to transcribe the harmony, the melody, or the drums. That's pretty awesome. If you already have a drum rack on this track, then it assumes you want it to be drums. but you can transcribe. It's pretty good. The melodic transcription is very good, and the harmony is okay. Okay, great. I'm gonna get to each of these. Next up was Oliver's. What's up, Oliver? Say hey to the Flatbush crew for me. Pitch bending per drum. Okay, so we're here on the instrument, which you get to again by double clicking the title. Here's the instrument. Here's the drum. Click the drum and you can edit it here in the sampler. It's the sampler instrument called the Simpler. We'll look at it next time. But under controls, there's a transpose button. Did you get that, Oliver? Can show you again. Click the instrument over here, click the controls tab, and transpose is here. Yeah. David asks, is there a way to sample the drum sounds as well? Yeah, so let's see, like put your own samples in for the drums. Is that what you mean, David? We should show this in any case, whether you want to do it this or not, whether that's your question or not. Each one of these can be swapped out with something else. So you've got a hot swap button here on the kick drum. That's going to open up a list of all of your available kicks. And you can double click and get it here, even while it's playing. Oops, okay, click the thing, hot swap, try out different sounds. It doesn't mess up the original preset, Gabriella, unless you hit this save button, in which case it won't either. You just give it a new name and it'll save it in your own user library. So you also don't have to just get whatever its drums, its suggestions of kick drums are. You can drag any sample from your, so this is just a folder on my computer that I've dragged into places. I have these, I don't know, let's get something that's not a drum. I've got some nice birds here. So I can drag this recording of birds, drop it here, and then I can like choose the starting point here. I can fade it in or have it fade out, transpose it, change the volume. So this isn't just for drums, it's for any collection of sounds that you want to make rhythms out of. So you can design your own kit, you can assemble a kit from from different drum sounds, or have it be some crazy instrument with any sounds that you want. Jason asks, how did I set it so that basically my default track is a track with a Simpler on it? You can make any kind of any track into a default track. I can put some effects on it. I can give it a name and control click and say set as default MIDI track. I don't actually want to do this, but if I did do it and then made a new MIDI track, it would put these things on it. David, oh yeah, David asks, can the transcription function of a beat also sample the original sounds? Not exactly, but here is, let me just show you this. Make a new MIDI track. Yours will be blank. You'll want to put a simpler instrument on it. So it's under Instruments, Simpler, drag it onto the track. Choose Slice Mode. And then drop your, this is my breakbeat that I transcribed before. Drop it here. It's gonna slice that beat at every significant moment, and a different MIDI note is gonna play each of those. So I'm gonna play on my keyboard now. I'm gonna arm the track so I hear it. And now I can just play on my keyboard. And it'll just play different slices. So this is a really easy way to get the sound of some recorded drum loop and play new patterns with it. Isn't that cool? You could also take, put any kind of content in there, like if I had some speech, I don't know. So like here's a bit of a Fela Kuti song. Let me turn it up. It's too loud, sorry. And so you can play songs out of other songs. But yes, Oliver, it just slices by time, not by layer. Cool, any other questions? Let's see. Hogs. I think we were in this situation when you asked this, where we have the drum. Sorry, I know that's loud. No, this is playing this way because the very first sound of this breakbeat, is a kick drum. Turn this off. So those are the first three sounds. So if I play the lowest three notes on my keyboard, there they are. Yeah, Gabriella. Let's see, in case you accidentally make a crazy loud audio effect. I've never, I don't know, it's not gonna, Gabriella's asking for the video people, do I need a limiter or something on the master track to keep myself from making sounds that are too loud and hurt my ears? I don't know, it's just never really come up for me. Yes, I do use a limiter sometimes when I'm done with the track and I want to make it as loud as possible and kind of round off the peaks. But it's not for safety. And I guess that's because kind of the safety part is built in. You can't really make something too loud. If you've got like if you're at 0 on all of your tracks and they're all really loud and going over, and so you've got overage up to here, it still is gonna like hit a ceiling at some point. It's not like Super Collider where like you really can hurt yourself because you can accidentally make something like 100 times louder than something else. But yeah, I think just keep your computer volume to a reasonable level. Keep each of your individual tracks at a level where they're not peaking and going into the red, and then keep your overall thing down a little bit so it's not going into the red, and you'll keep everything contained. Jason asked about sound design and creative process. Yeah, definitely. So as we get into, still we're just kind of in an overview portion for the next couple of lessons. But yeah, sound design, creative process, we'll do lots of cool like recipes and projects. Carl asks how to add more splices when controlling audio with MIDI or keyboard. Are you talking about this slice mode? Yes, so that's sensitivity. So you may end up, like with this Fela Kuti song, you may end up with lots of tiny slices, and maybe you want bigger chunks. You can turn down sensitivity and it'll only make splices at like more significant moments. So that's here. Slice by transient, which means slice by its analysis of significant moments. Change sensitivity. You could also slice into quarter notes or a slice where you can move around the things themselves. Not quite sure what's up with that. Awesome. Any more questions? Yeah, Gabriella, we'll definitely do some performing live stuff. And if you want to talk to me about it sooner, I know you're working on a piece. If you want to talk about it sooner, just schedule a time with me and we can do a one-on-one. Yep. We all have lots more time. Same story. Well, cool. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to hang around the Discord server today if anybody has any more questions that come up. I love seeing your work. Keep sending it in. That's awesome. If you want to drop me a couple of bucks, that would be appreciated. And otherwise, have a great weekend, and I'll see you Tuesday. Thanks. Bye.